people have left jobs, moved countries, gone off and written books. What's interesting is by even just taking the time out to explore it all and being coached on it.
Welcome to the Destiny Coaching Ministries podcast. I'm Tina Southgate. My desire for you is for you to discover more how to live your purpose fully with co-creative transformational coaching.
Yeah, Tina and I just wanted to have a formal chat about what's possible with the Destiny Coaching co-creative model in terms of the highlights and real incredible encounters of God that we've seen through the co-creative model. So Tina, can you tell us some highlights that have come up for you and how we can understand how the models and God's working in those moments?
Yeah, it never ceases to astound me what is possible with the way that God has shown us to do coaching, which we're now calling the co-creative transformational coaching model. There's so many things I could talk about, but I think the things over the years that have stood out to me the most, I love it when people get activated into, well, something that maybe they've had on their heart for many, many years, but for whatever reason, they've not moved forward in it. They've been very stuck. They've not understood what God is saying about it. They've not known exactly how to step forward into it. So you've got the stuck people that had a vision or a dream that just get activated all of a sudden, and doors start to open, and incredible things happen, and they just feel like they've got strategy from God and all kinds of things. But then you've also got people that get activated into something they didn't even think about before they got coached in this way and they got connected to God in this way. So, I mean, that's one of the many, many areas for me that's the favorite. I don't know what you feel.
Well, the other area that I've seen profound demonstrations when you've been doing it is in the aspect of identity, where you take them through a process for them to discover their personal identity in God.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important part of the whole process that we take people through, because there's obviously people are very focused on the doing, aren't they? Like, what am I meant to do? And they think of their calling as an assignment, something to do, which is not a wrong thing. But then what we've found, haven't we, is that we can activate the dream in them, the vision. We can sort of help them create that. But if they don't know who they are in God, they just won't get very far at all, because they have to have that confidence and they have to have that knowing of who they're being in the doing, if you know what I mean, before they can actually really do it in the way that they're meant to do it.
And there's been a range of different excitement that I see in the person that you're coaching when you're coaching them through identity. What are some of the highlights you've seen in the way the person changes their demeanor and what it's like for them to discover their identity?
Well, people have tended not to be given permission before, or even been led in through any framework to help them understand who they are fully, except for like the generic Christian, we're saints, we're this, we're that. So there's a lot of Bible verses that are used to help people to understand who they are, but to actually lead them through a process with God, so that they can hear God actually speak to them personally about how he sees them. And we do it, don't we, in lots of different formats. And when I've led someone through doing it, let's say through for example, our past, present, future framework, where we go back and we stay in the present and we take them into the future, in very creative ways, the change in them is phenomenal. Like, they cherish what they see and they cherish what they heard, and it's like they go around a bit stunned really for the rest of the day when they've been through that exercise, and it's like all the threads joining together in their mind, like, it's like light bulb moments of realizing the things in their lives that have been really important and really profound, and how they link to who they are and how God sees them. You know, it could be anything. It could be a particular experience or a Bible verse, or just things that have been in their heart all along, and having the Holy Spirit, having God himself just bring them alive into their identity. Just, it's like, I'd say it's almost like it sort of brings some sort of completion to them. I don't know what you would say you observe. How would you explain what you've observed?
Well, for me personally, the way I see it in their heart would be it's that aha moment where they switch from doing into being. So it's like the first light bulb moment in like, oh, that's who I am. That's my identity. And now I know who I am as a being. Whereas before that, when they didn't know who their identity was as a being, they were obviously, in a sense, performing or doing to, obviously, the dream was to discover who they are ultimately in God. Yeah. The other thing I wouldn't mind you quickly explaining is, so one of the things you do in the identity part of the program is get the people you're coaching to work out their life message. Can you explain what, broadly speaking, like what is a life message, and what's the application of it in somebody's life when they work it out?
Yeah, I'll have a go. So this is one of the kind of life purpose identity type frameworks that we have. So when they discover the life messages, they're so powerful to them, because I think they're very linked in a funny sort of way to core values as well, but it's a completely different way of looking at a value. But it's like connecting to what really matters to you and what you really exist to bring to the world, like what you're going to impact the world with. So it kind of brings this confidence and this focus, and seeing them speak out their life message or messages, because there's often more than one, they start to take on a different demeanor. It's like they realize what they carry, and they realize what has authority and what changes things. And of course, they're all linked to experience, encounter with God, their whole backstory. So I'd say it just brings people a real sense of purpose, identity, of authority, of confidence, and it helps them bring meaning to what they're doing, so they can understand how they're living that out through what they're doing or not, in which case they know what they've got to change as well. So it's helpful.
Yeah. And the second phase of the program is all about resonance. Could you just give us a brief explanation of what it means to take a client into a resonant moment?
Yeah, briefly put, they hopefully cry.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens. It's a good cry. And no, not everybody cries, but we're getting to such a deep level of emotion that they're connecting with the deepest things in their hearts, and they are experiencing a connection with their destiny, really, with the very reason they're alive. And that's very precious for them. I think those moments that happen in the coaching, they never forget, because it's not just a conversation about what to do, where to go, how to, solve something. It's more of a connecting to their very being.
Yeah.
The passion that's inside of them, because everyone has that. Like some people say, oh, Tina, I'm not a very passionate person, but actually they may not show up on the outside, very exuberant and very, enthusiastic. But when you find that resonance inside of what's it all about for them, then that's their passion, really.
Yeah. And part of what you do in resonance is to take them into a resonant moment that relates to what God's doing in that moment.
Yeah, there's lots of things we do. So again, using the past, present, future framework and other things, we're able to focus. This is what the co-creative model is all about. We focus on all the hundreds of clues that God's already put in our lives where there is already resonance, and we take people to those moments and we invite the Lord to speak into what's actually was going on there from a not just practical point of view, but emotional, spiritual, all of that. And then it becomes really obvious to people what that was all about and how that links to what their purpose is. And because at the end of the day, our purpose is always going to be where we're most resonant, right? So resonance is really important to find and cultivate and be able to. It's not just a one-off find. We're constantly looking for it, aren't we? In the whole coaching journey, in the whole co-creative journey, we're constantly looking for it.
Yeah. Fantastic. And can you give us some highlights of what's achievable with perspectives? What does perspectives help the coach do with the coachee?
So perspectives is our level 4 in our co-creative model. And this is generally something that we use a ton of tools in there that help people to shift the way they're thinking in order to move them forward into something much, much bigger than what they expected before. So, I mean, sometimes it's used for getting people unstuck, but generally, because we're taking them into the next level, it's used to get them thinking differently. And it's literally leading them through different perspectives, which will, like, some of them are absolutely crazy. And people, when I teach it, people are like, what are you doing? Like, and then they see it work and they're like, oh my gosh, who would have thought? So for example, we have a crazy perspective called banana land, or rather more abstractly, purple, for example. And there's hundreds of those. And that actually what we do is we lead people into a kind of a fun way to go into these different perspectives and then think about things from there, and that actually shifts everything for them. It's like it's building new neural pathways in the brain, really. It gets breakthrough. It's such a bizarre thing, but it works.
How would you define the breakthrough that's achieved with the perspectives a bit deeper?
Well, all of a sudden, because we don't just ever just do one, we lead them through different ones. And we've also got obviously our really big perspectives tool called the Grace and Authority Wheel, which is a big positive perspective change on your whole life. That's a bigger thing. But the shift, I'd say, is that they go from stuckness or negative thinking or not being able to see that something's possible to seeing that it's possible, seeing it through God's eyes, seeing not just that it's possible, but sometimes seeing loads of different ways that it is possible. So it kind of ignites their creativity and it ignites their possibilities, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And level 1, which is the first part of the program called core listening, can you give us an idea of what the expectations are of what somebody would be able to do after completing that course?
Level 1 sounds quite basic, but I think it's the hardest. Even though it's the first level that people do on our program, I think it's the hardest one of all, because it actually changes the way you think, from shoulds and fixing and kind of striving and trying to produce and perform when you're helping people, to actually relaxing and having tools that enable you to unlock things really quickly with people. So what do you leave with? You leave with a whole way of self-managing yourself and getting the best from people, getting the best from yourself, because you learn to stop jumping to conclusions. You learn to understand when to wait, and you understand how to open up possibilities up with open questions. You learn how to lead a conversation. I mean, it's coach training, but you're leading a conversation that has a focus and you're leading it somewhere rather than, it being quite random. You learn about how to go into the future more, how to visualize possibilities, how to work in the emotional paradigm, how to look at someone's life and look at, you know, where there's maybe gaps as to what they would like to do. Like someone might come, quite often we have people who come to coaching who just want to try it out. They don't actually have a topic. So you've got a tool in there that helps them to find out their topics, you know, parts of their lives that they really want to improve. So what do you walk away with? A whole new way of having conversations. And if you're going to be a coach, a whole new way of structuring conversations with people that get you somewhere very quickly. And also, if you're a leader, it gives you a whole new way of treating those you lead with empowerment, and rather than feeling like you have to be the one that always comes up with the answers, you actually learn how to unlock people in themselves and get a lot more from them, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So after completing level 1, what sort of coaching would somebody be able to do, would you say?
I think you'd be able to lead a coaching session. I would say you could do it professionally. I would say advise you do at least level 1 and 2 to do coaching professionally. It's just that there's so much more to the co-creative model than just level 1. But level 1 is actually quite a common level that people will get in other coach training, except our level 1 is different because, well, one student explained it that she said it's so beyond the grow model, for example, because it's so much more intuitive and helps you to think. It actually increases your emotional intelligence quite a lot because you're learning how to listen on different levels, not just, you know, at face value, not just the words that have been said, but it actually helps you to start to hear all those nuances going on in somebody that you wouldn't necessarily be tuned into. I mean, those people that are very emotionally intelligent already probably would be, but it actually gives you really great relational skills. You could use it to run little coaching sessions professionally, but I think more than that, it's going to just help your leadership and it's going to help your relational skills, like with your family, with your friends.
Can you give a couple of examples of how it helped relationships within the family? Because that gives us an idea of the impact on
Yeah, so I've
relationships.
had husbands and wives say that it's really improved their relationship because it's helped. One of the things we teach in level 1 is how to be curious. And curiosity, I believe, is kind of an art form that's been lost really in most conversations, you know, out there. It's kind of, let's say it's taught maybe in the dating, like, you know, giving people dating advice, but it doesn't stop with just that area. Like, people are the most fascinating things on the planet, and learning how to be curious and learning how to read what their agendas are, learning how to draw out from them what really matters, learning how to help them understand, you know, what matters to them, where they're headed, what they want to do, helping them to flip things and find solutions for themselves, all of that kind of stuff. You need to be able to do what we call active listening really well. And this particular level 1 teaches you active listening, but much more. It also teaches you different levels of listening, including the spiritual realm. So you can start to learn about what you might be hearing and sensing and how that is actually God trying to lead you and guide you, and how to use that, you know, in a respectful and empowering way with people to help move them on. And also the whole emotional paradigm, you know, sometimes we avoid anything that's sensitive or emotional, or but actually that's where the gold is in many, you know, instances. That's where we get to people's, you know, deeper stuff. So I'd say you leave with the ability to go 10 times deeper with people than you ever would have gone before. You leave with the ability to, with more confidence, to be able to relate to people relationally, whether it's at work, personally, in your spouse, your children. People have said that they've got to know adult children far better than they've ever known them through learning these skills. I've had a lady that learned them that said that, you know, she was quite burnt out leading her team, and she, you know, actually managed to self-manage herself in a different way, and delegate a lot more to a team and feel confident, and that just helped her not burn out, helped her work-life balance. So that's from a leadership point of view. Coaching wise, able to lead any coaching conversation on any topic, with a really great bunch of foundational coaching skills that are common, but also with our sort of more heart and spirit depth to them. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the last phase is activation. Do you want to just give us the summary of what activation is about, and we'll explore further?
Yeah, so the co-creative model, the final level we call activation. So just to explain the co-creative model, it's great when you learn it in its entirety, because you learn how to take people through quite a transformational journey over a number of sessions. But you can just do ad hoc, you know, each and every part of it is helpful in itself anyway. And the activation level, level 5, is great for getting people to do something, to start. And I think a lot of coaching is focused purely on this, a lot of kind of standard coaching, but this is kind of the pinnacle and the end of our sort of levels, level 5. And the first thing that we do differently is we have a very comprehensive readiness assessment tool. So a lot of coaching is like, okay, the whole onus is on the person being coached to do something at the end of the conversation. And that might be suggested to them. They might have to come up with themselves. But often it's quite big. You know, some of the things you're coaching on are whole big life changes, or, you know, very big things, maybe a relationship change, or something that's just really, really big. So actually taking the time to go through readiness assessment helps the person to understand more fully and be far more aware of where they're ready and where they're not, where they have been prepared and where they still need to be prepared. So it helps them to set goals that are more meaningful and in season and at the right time. So that's really helpful, because sometimes in coaching, you know, you send your client off with a whole bunch of goals and you come back and they haven't done any, or they've just not done it. And then you go on around this cycle, session after session after session, on why they haven't done it. And that's helpful, don't get me wrong, and that could work. But actually doing a readiness assessment brings much more focus in. And with our model, you've got the God element in as well. So you're actually asking God to speak in. And what this particular tool does is helps people understand the general rhythm of their season, what it's all about, the pace, and some specific areas that they may need to focus on. I've had people that have left their jobs and gone off and done something completely different because of the readiness assessment tool has shown up that they have to be matured in a particular area, for example, that they would not have even thought of if it hadn't been for that tool. So that's part of it. And then the other part of level 5 is all of the good old-fashioned, strong activation tools, like helping people with time management, you know, helping people to have accountability in place, setting those really important SMART goals, you know, all of that stuff, alongside activating you as a coach, or as whatever vision has grown in you, helping you to get activated and helping you to understand exactly what's next for you. So there's a whole bunch in there to help people, you know, create their own, articulate their own mission, you know, who I am as a coach, or who am I as whatever else. So it's all about where the rubber meets the road, and you actually start taking some steps and knowing what those best steps are and how to be confident in them, in that way.
But
Yeah.
is there a highlight you'd like to share with us about when you've been coaching someone, what's happened for them in activation?
Can't really think of any. Don't know whether you can.
Well, I think another way of saying it is, how would you explain what you've seen in activation in your other workshops?
Yeah, so I guess what we call the Destiny Activator program, which by the very name is all about activating people. There's been so many things that have happened. People have, first of all, bringing them clarity through the tools of, the readiness assessment. Well, first of all, getting a vision, then doing readiness assessment, the whole process really, which goes through more than just level 5, but ends on level 5 very strongly. People have left jobs, moved countries, gone off and written books. They've what's interesting is, by even just taking the time out to explore it all and being coached on it through these workshops that we do, it seems to stimulate something in the spiritual realm. So doors seem to open quite shortly after the or during the workshop or after it, and they're able to recognize those doors opening because they've taken the time to start to make some commitments, make some decisions, explore what's possible within their heart and mind. And they've also been taught how to take some steps through the level 5 stuff, the activation. They've learned how to assess whether they're ready, whether it's in season, which steps to take, and how important it is to take those steps. So part of it is demystifying common Christian thinking, which can some unhealthy but common Christian thinking, which some people have, not everybody, but some people feel very reluctant to set goals, reluctant to commit to a direction because of wanting to have, very complete surety from God. So we've got a whole thing behind it where we kind of proceed with caution, allowing God to guide us. So yeah, just so many things have happened. I mean, one lady came up to me at the end of a workshop. She must have been at least in her 70s, and she said, I've been to all kinds of different things, conferences, workshops, all of the ones that we would know very well. And she says, nothing's worked, but this has actually worked. I know what I'm meant to do next now and what God wants me to do. And I thought, well, that's good. Because what's really important as well is actually opening up that space spiritually for them to hear from God around the specific area that they're looking to, move
Yeah,
into. So, yeah.
fantastic. So in a later podcast, we'll discuss the application of Destiny Coaching Co-Creative with secular people or with other religious beliefs, and also in the marketplace.
Okay.
So these would be like big topics that we'll just talk about later. Well, it was great to have you listen to us, and we'll see you in the next podcast. Thank you. Bye.